anytime you get Paulie Malignaggi talking about Canelo or Haney, it's always pure gold. It's always entertainment. I don't know. He's been accused of being a hater of both of these fighters. I think his criticisms of Haney are actually probably even more harsh than his criticisms of Canelo. But let's have a look. Let's have a listen to Paulie talking about this upcoming fight this weekend. I thought it was pretty interesting. I felt he did his best job to be as fair as he could here to Haney. Fair in for Paulie, that is, anyways. But let's have a look. Let's have a listen. Let's go.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to touch on here. First off, I'll go with the DAZN mentality of putting Haney's name first. Sometimes I feel like, am I viewing this all wrong? I do see Haney as a talented guy. I do see Haney as a guy who has some skills and can box rather well. But I when everybody starts to push this whole star power thing, I'm not seeing it, man. I mean, I think he's a good fighter. He didn't sell a lot of pay-per-views, even against the most name recognizable opponent of his career, which was the Lomachenko fight. I don't understand really what the rush is in trying to say that he's a star. He's not a big puncher. He's not an explosive personality. He's not like the pretty boy looks like a Ryan Garcia, for example. I don't understand this extreme push for the marketing ploy here.
So I'm going to stop it right there and chime in. Number one, using pay-per-views to establish who is relevant and who is a star in boxing is always going to be problematic, and I'll tell you why. There's only a couple people in boxing, literally a couple, that do huge numbers on pay-per-view. One of them is Canelo Alvarez, right? And the second, depending on who the person is fighting, you could make a case for Tank Davis against Ryan, but other than Ryan, I mean, it's not like he's done huge numbers. You can make a case for AJ, right? You could make a case potentially for Errol Spence Jr., right? But even Errol Spence, it's not like we're talking about $1 million or a million pay-per-view buys. But here's the thing about Haney. Haney, I was at the fight against Lomachenko. It was like 17,000 people. There was a sellout with people lining up throughout the MGM Grand just to get into the Grand Garden Arena. I was there. I recorded it. I was meeting with other fans. I was a credentialed member of the media. I was there, right? I'm sorry, but selling out an arena is star making, right? Prior to fighting against Lomachenko, he had two huge attendance gates in Australia against Gambosis. So we're talking about back-to-back last three fights either being an arena fight or a stadium fight. Not a lot of people in boxing have done that in the last 2 years. So is he a huge pay-per-view star? No. But he's also a Gen Z. Gen Zs don't buy pay-per-views. Gen Zs stream. Gen Zs are cord cutters even more than millennials, we were the cord cutters. The Gen Z, they have never even have a cord. They don't know what the hell a cord is. They don't know what cable is. So, I mean, again, you want to use pay-per-views as your metrics. Yeah, most people won't be quote-unquote big stars. But if you look at it in terms of tickets sold and engagements on social media, I think it's fair to say that Devin Haney is one of the young stars in the sport, just in my opinion. Let's continue.
I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you. DAZN is I've already shown that business-wise, they're about as dumb as a box of rocks. I mean, they've constantly lost money. So, I mean, it doesn't shock me that they would try to force a round peg into a square hole. But at the same time, and this is not a knock on Haney's boxing ability. I think he's a good boxer in an overall exciting weight class. He doesn't stand out to me like, oh, this guy is a guy who, among all these great fighters, among all these really good, among this really fun weight class, this guy stands out as something extra special. Dude, I don't see it. I just don't, man. I think, and again, I think he's a good fighter. I think he can box. I just don't see any separation from everybody else. I don't see this.
So I saw separation. right? Devin Haney comprehensively outboxed Kambosos twice. Memory serves me well. Paulie picked Kambosos. Haney defeated Lomachenko. Memory serves me well. Paulie said that that was the white guy that Haney wouldn't fight and would avoid fighting. Then he ends up fighting him in a sellout crowd at MGM Grand and beats him. All right. Not to mention the fact that the guy that he beat twice in Australia is the guy that beat Teofimo Lopez in New York City, you know, in a fight that I was live in attendance at. And very few people were picking Kambosos then, but he did what he did to Teofimo Lopez, and then Devin Haney did what he did to Kambosos not once but twice. So yeah, he kind of has separated himself a little bit. Again, just in my opinion, I'm not here trying to dog Paulie. I actually like Paulie a lot. I wish Paulie was still on TV. Paulie is actually one of my favorite guys that talk boxing. Paulie, Barry Jones, Carl Frampton, Andre Ward. Believe it or not, I like Timothy Bradley. You know, believe it or not, I like Lennox Lewis. People made fun of me a lot for that one, especially Kenny when we were doing Mano a Mano. He didn't think that Lennox Lewis was very good as a commentator. But, you know, I'm a huge Lennox Lewis fan, so I'm just going to throw him in there. But definitely Paulie, Barry Jones, Carl Frampton. I'm a big fan of those guys, Andre Ward as well. And believe it or not, another big one I'm a fan of is the Magic Man, the other Magic Man, Antonio Tarver. Very good, too. But let's continue.
And like I said, usually the intangibles that you need, like a big personality or big punching power or one of those things, like or being like and again, the model looks like a Ryan Garcia. He doesn't have any of those either. So I'm struggling to see why the push, why the disrespect for.
He beat Loma. He beat Kambosos twice in Australia. And I actually think that he actually is pretty charismatic and entertaining. I enjoyed the face-off. I'm going to show clips of that in a moment, but I enjoyed the face-off, right? I enjoy the interviews that he's done. I enjoyed the back and forth between him and Regis's strength and conditioning guy at the press conference. I thought all of that shit was entertaining, personally. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. It's just punchlines. Let's go.
For Prograis of the promotional banner saying, oh, Haney versus Prograis instead of Prograis versus Haney. This is not Floyd Mayweather post Oscar de la Hoya, where Mayweather was doing this post Oscar de la Hoya. This is not Canelo, where, again, they can fight the doorknob on the door over here and they can get 1 million pay-per-view buys. You know what I'm saying? This is not that kind of thing. And even then, I always had a problem with it, but I kind of, at least there's a reasoning.
It is this kind of thing. This is exactly the kind of thing that it is. Look, do you guys remember Regis's last fight against Zorrilla? By the way, I thought Zorrilla beat Regis. Was it ugly? Absolutely. Do I think he won the fight? Yeah, by a round or two. But in terms of star power and who's the A side and who's the B side here, did you guys see the crowd at the Smoothie King Arena in New Orleans? Guys, it looked like there was like 2,000 people there. They tarped the upper deck and half of the lower bowl at that fight. And I'm sure a lot of those tickets were comped. So let's not come out here and act like Devin Haney's not bringing something to the table. He was undisputed at 135, for God's sakes. He held all the belts, beat Kambosos twice in Australia, beat Loma at a sellout crowd at the MGM Grand earlier this year. I mean, the idea that somehow Regis and him are like, no, not at all. He's leaps and bounds ahead of Regis in terms of his status in the sport at this moment in time. Devin Haney was undisputed. Devin Haney beat Kambosos twice in Australia. Devin Haney faced off against Lomachenko, something that Tank Davis refused to do. By the way, Tank Davis also refused to fight George Kambosos in Australia, because that was the other fight that the Kambosos people wanted. I was talking to Jim, George's father. They wanted Loma, they wanted Tank. Devin Haney came in because those two guys wouldn't or couldn't take the fight in Australia. let's continue.
You say, Paul, you know, there's a lot of money. You know, the guy's worth so much money. You know, he generates a lot of money. You kind of have to understand it, even if you don't agree with it. And I didn't agree with it then, but I understood it. This right here, I don't agree with.
Yeah.
Just like I don't understand how DAZN can constantly influx money into a channel that constantly loses money, and they still influx money somehow. I don't know where they get it out of the sky. I don't get that either. But especially this particular situation is a microcosm of the whole business model. What are you doing? What is this? Exactly what is this? You know? So now let's go forward with the boxing. Again, I think Haney's actually a good.
All right, let's stop it there, because I do want to agree with something Paul says, and it's DAZN's business model. This fight shouldn't be on pay-per-view. This shouldn't be a pay-per-view fight. And to his point, they're losing money by all accounts. And they're bleeding the U.S. consumer dry. They're charging us $220+ US dollars a year. And on top of that, upselling us for the biggest fights that they put on their calendar, including Regis Prograis versus Devin Haney, which is, of course, on pay-per-view. I don't agree with that. I don't like it. I don't understand the business model. So in terms of that, I'm in 100% agreement with Paulie Malignaggi. Here we go.
Boxer, a solid boxer. I think he's talented. I think it's a good fight. And I think styles make fights. And for that reason, I think Haney's ability to control range a little bit better than Prograis gives him a slight advantage here. Now, are we writing off? I sometimes wonder, are we writing off Prograis? He's only got one loss, and that's to Josh Taylor, who at the time was on a roll. You know, but or is Prograis' kryptonite this ability or this inability to close range in a deceptive enough way to catch a guy like Haney, right? Because in order to close range against a guy like Haney, who's very good at controlling range, you've got to be deceptive enough. You've got to have a lot of trickery to you. Otherwise, you're going to be walking into his shot.
Well, you also got to be able to move in more than one direction, which is what he was essentially doing all night long against Zorrilla, which is why he was missing his jab. Go back and watch the fight. Go back and watch the fight. It was embarrassing, the distance at which he was missing with his right jab, because he consistently kept moving only in one direction, regardless of where Zorrilla was moving after he was throwing his jab. So I'm going to leave it at that. Look, I'm excited about this fight. I'm going to be watching the fight. I hear somebody here saying that they're going to watch the fight in a casino. I'm in New York City. There's not that many good casinos over here. So options are limited for that one. It's not like you can go out to your local sports bar and watch a fight like this there. So options are limited. But am I happy about the upsell that DAZN is forcing upon U.S. fight fans? Absolutely not. For our $225 a year, we should be getting this fight included. We shouldn't be having to pay extra money on top of it to stream the fight legally, which is why so many people turn to the illegal stream.